Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily Biz Link. Jane Cebrynski is back, and today we're talking about how to get comfortable with talking about your strengths. So, Jane, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. So give me a 10 moment.
My 10 moment, I did a presentation this week for one of our A to Z BizLink events. I often help individuals with thinking through what makes them unique or different and talking about their strengths. We often refer to this in the marketing world as a unique selling proposition. And so it was just such a 10 moment for me to help other individuals with working through that. So that's my 10 moment of the week.
Well, I love that because having a conversation around strengths can be really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And, in some cultures, it's kind of considered taboo. And in discussing with some of my clients, they'll often say, well, it makes me sound braggadocious or egotistical, or, people aren't going to want to hang around with me. And so I really want to change the thinking to say, hey, you know what? We've got to be able to have these conversations.
Absolutely. Well, in pulling some information from my presentation this week, it just makes me think like if we don't talk about what makes us different or unique, then we all look the exact same way. So, in order to stand out in the crowd, we have to talk about our strengths.
Well, the thing is, science tells us that our brains are actually wired to focus on the negative. So we've got to really focus on the positive and really allow ourselves to live with our strengths. So many times too, we want to have different strengths because we think it'll make us look better, sound better, be better. And we end up getting ourselves trapped in situations where it's like, you know what, I just got to own it. That is not a strength of mine. And so I really would love to encourage, first of all, we all have strengths. They look and sound different for everyone, and that's the beauty of life. But when we think about, just teams, whether it's corporate teams or sports teams, you don't want everyone to be alike. You want to have diversity of strengths on your team in order to be the best that you can be. And if we judge what strengths people have or make assumptions about what it means to be successful, what strengths you have to have in order to be successful, then we shortchange a lot of people out there. And it's really important for our own self-worth to understand that we bring something unique to the world.
I think where a lot of us go wrong is we consistently talk about what's not right or what's wrong or what we're not doing really well instead of focusing in on those strengths. And so, curious, I would like to get your perspective as we're talking about working in a team environment or working with our employees, the impact that it can have if we really focus in on those strengths rather than weaknesses.
Well, so just the fact that sometimes we're shy about it, or the fact that the brain is wired to focus on the negative, we don't necessarily spend time really thinking about what our strengths are. And it also shows that if we can verbalize it, if we can have that conversation, it draws not only more self-awareness to who we are and what we have to contribute, but it makes it more real. And so if we're not having that conversation or we're not feeling comfortable about it, I think about what could be missing. Something on your team could be lacking. And because nobody's willing to step up and say, okay, that's actually a strength of mine, how are you negatively impacting your team? And so I want people to, and this conversation shows up in interviews, and all of a sudden, the palms get sweaty. Oh my God, I got to talk about my strengths. But really, you have to think about it in terms of, okay, how can I contribute? In what ways can I contribute? And the world may need your strengths. And if you're not willing to share them, you're really doing a disservice. So that's the thinking I'd like for people to switch to, is that it's not braggadocious, but it's really showing the ways that you can contribute to the success, not only of your life, but also of your team.
I know we talk often about, what that looks like in the professional space, but how about in our personal relationships? How does that positively impact those?
Well, so that's another really important conversation to have too, because it creates balance, not only in the conversations, but in our relationships. If we don't share that side of us, then people don't really have the opportunity to get the full view. We focus on the bad, usually. We focus on what we're not good at. And that's what is so interesting. We're so quick to say what we're not good at. And we're so trepidatious in talking about the things that we are good at. And so, people don't really get to know who we are fully sometimes. And it's very powerful in being able to share all sides of us.
So what is the challenge of the week, Jane?
So, one of the exercises that I coach a lot of my clients in is every day choose one strength about yourself that you can appreciate. Now, I play with this in a couple of different ways because this exercise was really hard for me too. I mean, I struggle with it. So, I don't think anybody is impervious to it, but we want to create, we want to cultivate, and we want to continue to grow. So, number one, it's not too late to add more strengths to your repertoire, even as we age. But I tend to look at it as, okay, what is a strength that I need to tap into today to get something done or to accomplish a desired outcome? That's one way. The other way is to look at the end of your day and some of your highlights and ask yourself the question, like, what strengths came to light based on this situation for today? And what it does is it re-anchors us and continues to reinforce what our strengths actually are. So we get better and better at learning how to communicate them, but we also get better and better at cultivating them and continuing to master the skills around those strengths.
All right. So as we look to wrap up today's conversation, Jane, is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, your strengths are needed, they're required. So if you don't share them, you actually don't serve yourself and the people around you.
All right. Well, Jane, as always, thanks for helping us to live a 10 life.
Thanks so much, Lindsay, for having me.